Okay, so now let's go on to some examples. Okay, so let's take a look at the climate of different places in the United States. Okay, you guys all been to Las Vegas, probably?
Yes.
So you guys are familiar with Las Vegas. Have any of you been to the Florida Keys?
Yes.
So a couple of you have, right? If you haven't, I can tell you that it's South Florida. Seattle. How many of you guys went to Seattle recently? Any of you? So Seattle is on the Pacific coast, but it's way the heck north, right? Chicago. Chicago is in the middle of the country, way up north. And then again, there is Burbank, Pasadena, California. Okay? That's near and dear to us. So let's take a look, linking what we know about climate of those regions and what we're going to learn about climate in those regions. Let's link those to the psychometric chart that we saw earlier. And what I want you to do is I want you to kind of look where the dots are. Look where the shading is. Okay? So let's start with Las Vegas, Nevada. Okay? Let's take a look at Las Vegas, Nevada. So would you say that the majority of time in Las Vegas, Nevada, it is freezing cold? Or would you say that the majority of time it's sweltering hot? Let's define temperatures above 80 degrees as really hot and temperatures below 60 as really cold. So we'll say that between 60 and 80 is kind of in the middle there. Okay? So to me, when I look at this, it looks like a pretty even distribution. There's very warm periods. There's a lot of moderate periods as far as dry bulb temperature. And there's a lot of cold periods in relation to dry bulb temperature. Now, bear in mind, that's cold relative to Iggy. I start whining at around 68 degrees. Okay? So is it really humid in Vegas? If it was, wouldn't it be up in these bands up here? If it was hot and humid, it would be up in the 90s and way up here for humidity, right? Okay, so it's a pretty dry place. So those are important factors to take a look at. Now, so again, just everybody close your eyes and then blink and look at the screen and see where the dots are. Okay? So just go blink and you'll see when I do that, I could tell that it's like down low and spread out across the bottom. So now let's compare that to Key West, Florida. Big difference, right? I mean, it's humid a lot in Florida. It's really humid a lot, right? Doesn't look like it ever gets really cold, does it? I mean, the lowest temperatures are maybe in the 50s here, right? And it gets pretty warm, but no hotter than about 90, right? So as long as you're in, bathing suit or swim trunks, you're good down there. Now, it will get cold occasionally. Right? I remember just recently I was down in Mexico, southern Mexico, and I was watching the weather maps, and I looked, and Miami got down to 42 degrees. That's pretty cold. Yeah. Because they had some big, massive cold fronts that pushed way down and stalled over the Caribbean. Because the warm air was going, you shall not pass. The warm air is the Gandalf. No. All right. Never mind. Okay, we'll keep going. All right, so now comparing, look, so let me go back and forth on that one for a sec, okay? So take a look, right? There's Key West, and there's Seattle. Now, Seattle is wet. It's up in these bands, and it's pretty far over. This is like miserable for Iggy. Okay, I don't like that kind of weather. It's cold and damp and depressing and blah. Right? There's some of you that love that kind of weather. You like to be bundled up with a little cup of coffee.
Starbucks.
That's right. They're from up there. Okay, so let's go back and very quickly go through these. So Las Vegas, Key West, and look at the difference in those three climates. Look where the dots are. Totally different. right? All right, so now let's go on forward to Chicago. Now, Chicago's got a lot of dots down here, doesn't it? That's pretty dense. So if this is misery for me, I don't know. This must be hell, right? It's cold, and there's a lot of humidity in the air, which means that it rains and snows a lot, right? And then in the summer, right, it doesn't get super, super hot, but it gets hot and humid. So most of you would hate this weather. Okay? Starting to see how the psychometric chart starts to give you clues as to the climate? And how seeing every hour of an entire year plotted kind of gives you these averages. It shows you a visual clue of these averages. That's better than looking at, you know, the AAA version, which has like 12 little bars and it has a high-low. This is, to me, much more communicative. All right, finally, hey, there's us. Right, doesn't get much below 40. It doesn't get much above 100, and it's spread out all over the map. We have high humidity, we have low humidity. Okay? And so the important thing to note in these things is that humidity, right, is one of the big factors in allowing you to either evaporate or not evaporate. And air temperature is another huge factor in your feeling cold or hot. Okay? So if we remember this from the last lecture, not the last class, right, these were the things, right, that dealt with the human condition and thermal comfort. What I want you guys to remember is that there were the environmental factors and the personal factors. So what we've just been talking about dealt with the environmental factors. Okay? All right, which brings us to designing our buildings. Because heating and cooling a building is one of the biggest consumers of electricity and fuel that we have, right? It's also one of the biggest contributors to pollution. So those two things are linked, okay? And one of the things that has to happen is that as you understand human comfort, right, and how to deal with human comfort, and you understand the climate that the building is located in, you as a designer are going to be empowered to design something that isn't going to consume as much energy as an average building. Okay? So, that's it. And we'll stop this one.